Hi, and welcome to Finding Mojo, your storytelling channel for kids. I'm your host, Pete, and I've got to say it's a beautiful day here in Queensland, sunny winter weather. I hope it's lovely where you are and that you're ready for a story. So get comfy, and let's find out what Pea and Bean have been up to. Now, in the last episode, they crash landed on a volcanic island in the middle of nowhere, probably uncharted. And they were having a sandwich on the volcanic rim as they checked out the island below. Let's pick it up there. P, I reckon we should save a sandwich for dinner. So I'm only going to eat half mine. I'm putting half back. What do you reckon? P said, yeah, that sounds sensible, Bean. I like that. I like it when you're sensible. Bean laughed, stood up and put his backpack on, gazed around, grinned widely, and then said, "Race you to the bottom, P," and took off. P jumped up, grabbed his backpack, yelled out, "That's not fair," and took off after Bean. Now you got to remember that they were running down the side of a steep volcano like this. Loose, gravelly rocks, small pebbles and gravel really. Black. Now every time, Bean's got long legs, right? He's a long, skinny veggie. And every time he ran and took a leap, he would jump 3 or 4 times as far as he normally would when he was walking or running because of the slope. So he was kind of jumping down the mountain really fast. P, on the other hand, is a little round veggie with little short legs. Well, you can imagine when he started running down this steep slope, his big round body overbalanced on those little tiny legs. And he said, oh no, oh look out. And he fell and he began to tumble and somersault and roll down the volcano. Now he was going so fast by this stage that he overtook Bean. And all Bean heard as he went past was, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." And Bean yelled out, "That's cheating." Needless to say, P got to the bottom of the volcano first, and by the time Bean arrived, P was standing there groggily, swaying back and forth, dizzy. "I won," he said with a big grin on his face. Bean said, "Yeah, it's not the same when you cheat." He said, "Come on, let's get into this jungle. We haven't got long, it's going to be late. We need to find a camping spot." So they left the hot black slopes of the side of the volcanic cone, entering the dark, cool interior of the dense jungle. Now, volcanic soil is very rich, and plants love it. These plants obviously loved it. It was a dense, thick, incredible jungle. There was no way you could easily get through it, and they'd pull vines apart and squeeze between trees. And then P noticed a banana palm, and he said, "Hey, P, check this out. There's a hand of bananas there." And he snapped it off and put it in his backpack. Bean snapped off some too. He said, "These would be great for later." He put them in his backpack. Fought their way through the jungle a bit further. And then Bean said, "You know, Pete, there's got to be a better way to do this. Listen, I can hear water." And they both stopped and listened. There was definitely the sound of running water. He said, "That's probably a stream coming off the volcanic lake." If we can follow that, I bet you it'll find its way to the beach. We could just walk in that stream. That'd be much easier. P said, yeah, good idea. I'm all for that. And so as they picked their way towards the sound of running water, they passed a mango tree. And they picked a couple of mangoes and they put them in their backpack. And then there was a pawpaw tree. P said, hey, Bean, these are all tropical fruits, aren't they? Bean said, yeah, everyone knows that. And he said, so they only grow in the tropics, right? Bean said, yeah, what's your point? P said, well, now when we watched that documentary about New Zealand, P said, yeah. Bean said, yeah. Yeah. He said, well, they said it was really cold. It's good for skiing. Yeah. Bean started to see where this was going. What's your point, P? He said, Bean, if we were going for New Zealand, how come we ended up somewhere where there's tropical fruit? Do you think we might have gone the wrong way? Bean laughed. He said, I see where you're going with this, P. You're trying to blame me. You think I put us in the wrong place. Look, dude, it's a very imprecise science, firing a catapult. And I should have mentioned that as a slight risk before we took off, that you launch a catapult, you kind of know where it's going to go, but it's not exactly an accurate navigational science. Exactly. And you've got to remember, P, that we shot ourselves up so high that we were almost probably in orbit, even though we were unconscious at the time. Now, at those high altitudes, P, there are such things as the jet stream winds. Now, these are really strong winds. And we were passing through those jet stream winds as we went up to orbit, and just a slight variation in our trajectory coming back down would mean a really big change in where we landed. Do you see? You see where I'm going with this, Pete? And P's like a bit dazzled by the science. He goes, yeah, so what you're saying, Bean, is it's not your fault. It's absolutely not. No, I blame science. Anyway, let's get going. And so they broke through another dense undergrowth section, and there was the creek at last. And they took a drink because by then they were pretty thirsty, and the water was crystal clear and so refreshing. They filled their water bottles, and it was very shallow. It was more of a stream than a creek, really. Not very wide, not very deep. A little bit of weed growing in the bottom. And they just waded through that and followed it to the shore. After a few moments, Bean said, you know, P, I don't mind this place. It's pretty cool. It's not New Zealand, P replied. But yeah, it's all right. How are we going to get home, then? He said, you leave that to me, P. P replied, yeah, Bean, that's what I'm worried about. You're not going to miss Australia, are you, on the way home? And Bean said, P, you've got so little faith in me. How could I miss Australia? It's huge. And he laughed. And P laughed because he knew it was pointless to argue with Bean. And, somehow Bean had pretty good luck and things usually turned out. So he stopped worrying about it. They sloshed along in silence for a little while until there was a sound of a breaking branch. Quite loud, not a small branch. They both stopped, looked looked around. Bean, did you hear that? Bean said, sure did. It's probably just a little creature in the forest. He said, little? That was a big branch, Bean. That wasn't a little creature. Bean said, yeah, well, maybe it was just a branch just falling off, you know. Dead branch, that happens. P nodded, yeah, I guess it does. He said, listen, P, I want to say this right now. This is a tiny island, dude. It's about 4 kilometres across. If that. It's not big enough to sustain big life. There'd be nothing bigger than a mouse on this island. And I don't even know how a mouse could ever even get here. Probably just birds. Relax, P. We're nearly at the beach. Look, I can see it's getting light up there. They trudged on, splashing through the water. And sure enough, there was a light patch in the shadows of the jungle up ahead. The sunlight was coming through. Suddenly they broke out onto the beach, and the bright sun glared in their eyes and they had to shield their eyes from it. Wow! Look at that sea, P said. Sunlight was glistening off the water, and it was a beautiful, pale turquoise colour. But the sand was the big surprise. The sand was black. Bean, what's wrong with this beach? I've never seen black sand before. Bean chuckled. He said, no, it's not like Queensland beaches, are they, P? This is a volcanic island. That is volcanic sand. I said, right, that makes sense. He said, but look out, P. It'll be hot. Leave your thongs on, dude. P laughed, yeah. I can imagine. So they crossed the sand down to the waterfront where it was a bit firmer and they were able to walk more easily. They stood there looking out to sea. What a gorgeous place, Bean said. And then when he looked up the beach, they saw this rocky headland that they'd seen from the top of the volcano jutting out to sea. At some point in the past, it must have been an outbreak of lava that had poured out from the volcano and made this headland. And around the headland broke perfect waves like Bean had never seen before in his life. Now, Pea and Bean loved surfing. And when they saw this, they became very excited, jumping up and down. Did you see that, Bean? Bean said, what do you think, P? I've got eyes. Let's get up there. Let's camp there. Bean said, but we've got no boards, Bean. It's going to be terrible looking at that surf if we can't ride it. Bean said, trust me, P. We'll be riding it. Now, come on, let's go. And so they walked kind of quickly now. They were pretty excited. And they were walking right along the shore, right on the edge of the sea, in the wet sand. And to their right, the beach sloped up, and then there was a berm caused by the high tide. P pointed to something on the berm. He said, look at that, Bean. That's like a giant footprint. Bean looked at it and laughed. He said, yeah, it does look like a giant footprint, P. I guess it's just a shape that was made by the swirling water at high tide. Because P, and he laughed at this point, there's nothing that big on this island. P laughed too. And just to make a further point of it, Bean said, in fact, I don't think there's anything that big on the whole planet. And they laughed and they continued walking. But if they'd had a bird's eye view of a bit further along the beach, above the high tide mark, and this washed out footprint, they would have seen a perfectly formed giant footprint in the sand. To be continued. Now, I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please leave a like. That helps me a lot. And if you want to find out what happens next, don't forget to subscribe too. And if you're a teacher watching this and you'd like some ideas for how to integrate it into some of your lessons, I'll put a couple of simple ideas below in the notes. Anyway, that's all for today. You'll have to tune in next time to find out what happens in Pea and Bean Rexcellent. Take care. Bye for now.